Hello students, this is lesson U1A05a. Hopefully by the end of the lesson you should be able to say to yourself, I can solve for angles that are complementary, supplementary, explementary, or vertical angles. And we are going to be focusing on only the algebraic applications of these types of angles today. So let's take a look. Now in this lesson you are going to be utilizing these 4 facts. Okay, so I want to spend a couple, maybe like 30 seconds talking about each one of these. Okay, here what we have, if ever you have 2 lines intersecting like so, in this manner, okay, anytime you have 2 lines coming together like that, you're going to form 4 different angles. And as it turns out, the angles that are opposite one another, okay, in particular, what am I talking about here when I say opposite? I mean angle A and angle B, they're opposite of one another. And then angle C and angle D, they are opposite one another, okay? The angles that are facing one another, okay, they happen to be congruent to one another. This is true, okay, if you have 2 lines intersecting. And these angles are what we refer to as vertical angles. A great way to remember this is if you have 2 lines coming together, it forms 2 V's, right? So these are vertical angles. All right, the next one here, this is an explementary angle. Okay, what are explementary angles? Just like over here where we have 2 angles, okay, that form vertical angles, here we have explementary angles, okay? 2 angles that add up to 360. So if you have 2 angles, okay, where you know the inside and the one outside, okay, all together add up to 360, they are referred to as explementary angles. This is what we refer to as a linear pair. Okay, why is this called a linear pair? This is actually very appropriate because if you have 2 angles here, in this case I have angle X and I have angle Y, and these 2 angles together, they form a straight line. What this will imply then is, okay, 2 angles that form a straight line, they are a linear pair, okay? Hence, we have a pair of angles that form a line, right? So that is very appropriate. And not only are they linear pairs, but they are also supplementary, okay? So 2 angles that form a straight line, they add up to 180. So angle X and angle Y, they add up to 180. So again, 2 angles that form a straight line, they're called a linear pair, and they are supplementary. Let's take a look at the next concept here, which is the complementary angles. So what are complementary angles? Complementary angles are 2 angles. Again, they are adjacent to one another. They're next to one another, okay? And they form a right angle. So 2 angles are said to be complementary angles if they add up to 90. So these are the 4 core concepts that we are going to focus on. Let's take a look at some examples on how we can apply this. All right, so this is actually just like some of the problems that you are going to asked to solve, okay? So in this case here, for question number 1, you're asked to name the angle relationship. Let's do that. The angle relationship here, okay, is if I have angle A and angle B, angle B and angle A rather, I got it backwards, okay? Angle A and angle B, those 2 angles together, well, looks like they are next to this angle over here, which happens to be 90. So therefore, like all of this must equal to 180 then, right? So angle A and B, they must be complementary. Because half of 180 is 90, and A and B must add up to 90, so therefore A and B are complementary. So let's take a look at this guy right now. So I know angle A and B, they are part of a straight line. These are a pair of angles that are forming a straight line. So this is a linear pair. And a linear pair are supplementary. Let's take a look at the third one here. The third one, well, it doesn't quite look like the diagram that I had shown you in the beginning of the lesson. However, can you all see that these two lines, they intersect and they form that 2V, right? So actually A and B are going to be congruent to one another, and these are vertical angles. So again, just to be clear here, A plus B is equal to 90. Here A plus B is equal to 180. And that guy right there is our vertical angles. They are going to be congruent to one another. Let's take a look at the next one here. Find a value of x. So let's take a look at this. Well, it looks like, again, these two angles are linear pairs, okay? And what do we know about linear pairs? Oh yeah, that's right. They are supplementary. So therefore, x plus 27 plus 102, they must equal to 180. So therefore, I'm going to solve for x. To do that, I'm going to simplify all this stuff here. This is going to be x plus 129 is equal to 180. And therefore, I know that x will equal to 51. Okay, let's move on. So again, I have another pair of, I have another linear pair, and they two are also going to be supplementary. I encourage you to go and try this on your own, and press pause, and we'll come back to it. So welcome back. This problem here, very, very similar. This is, again, 3x plus 1 plus x minus 13, and this is going to equal to 180. So I know that this is 4x minus 12 is equal to 180, or in other words, 4x is equal to 192. If I divide both sides by 4, I will end up with what's this? 4 goes to 19 4 times, so that's 4. And with 32, so that's 8. So x is equal to 48. Let's take a look at this guy right here. Alright, so I have this angle, well, I have 3 different angles, but if you look, all 3 of these angles must add up to 360. These are examples of explementary angles. So if I take this, I say 2x plus x minus 115 plus 25. They all have to equal to, you guessed it, it's 360. So I'm going to add all this stuff up. I get 3x plus, or actually negative 115 plus 25. I'm going to end up with 90. So it's minus 90. Is equal to 360. I'm going to add over 90, so I'm going to end up with 3x is equal to 450. Or if I divide both sides by 3, I'm going to end up with 150 as x. I would encourage you to try and do this on your own. Okay, I'm not going to do this just because it is very, very similar. But yeah, and I'll have the file. The file is already in the Google Drive. It's titled, again, U1A05a I. You can look that up. It's in that folder. So I encourage you to try this out if you don't know how to do this, or actually if you want more practice, rather. Let's take a look at this guy. Okay. So again, very, very, very similar problem. This is actually a linear pair. Again, I encourage you to try this out on your own and check the results there. This is a linear pair, so therefore it must add up to 180. So I'm going to skip this. Let's move on to the next page. All right, question 10. So I have these two angles here. So these two angles, okay, they are part of that 90-degree angle there. So therefore, these two angles must be complementary. So I know that x plus 4 plus 3x plus 2 will equal to 90. If I add all this stuff up, I end up with 4x plus 6 is equal to 90. Subtract by 6, I end up with 4x is equal to 84. Divide by 4, I end up with 21. This is a very similar example, so I'm not going to do that just because you've seen me go through that complementary question. Let's move on to the next one. Question number 12. You're asked to find out what the angle measure of angle B is. So if I take a look at this, notice right now, okay, even though there's more lines here, okay, these two angles, okay, happen to be what's called vertical angles. So therefore, B must equal to 68. Right? Not a problem. All right. We need to find out what x is in this problem here. Very, very similar. So again, you notice that these two angles, okay, they happen to be on opposite sides of those two lines that are crisscrossed, so therefore they are again vertical angles. So I will know that 6x plus 4 will equal to 46. If I subtract both sides by 4, I end up with 6x is equal to 42. Divide both sides by 6, x is equal to 7. And then these are really similar concepts, okay, so I'm not going to do this just because they are, again, vertical angles. We're going to set them equal to one another and solve. And that's pretty much it. Actually, here are the answers. So I encourage you to go back to the problems that I was talking about before and take a look at this. Maybe perhaps try to solve some of these problems on your own. And yeah. Alright, so I will see you on the next video.